let's call this meeting to order. And start by standing and saying the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll do roll call. Top of my list here is Kimberly, and she sent me a text just as I was going to pick her up to say that she fell. And her dad was taking her to the emergency. So she is certainly an excused absence today. Glenn? Are you here?
Yeah.
Okay. Jessica? I haven't heard from her. Mark?
Yeah,
Young?
I'm here.
Crystal? Here. Gail?
Here.
Beth? Here. I'm here. Jane? Here. Deb? Here. And Karen?
Here.
Okay. Now at the point where we have a provision for public comment. Okay, next is, the agenda. Is there anything that anyone wants to, change, add, take off? I'll either do it, or do you want to mention it, Gail?
Well, I'd like to amend the agenda here to have an expanded, number 11 for Chairman Kelsey's, taking care of some business. I believe is right here. And the report.
What do you mean by expanded business? I mean, I know I've got quite a few things to report
Do
on
you
from
want
my,
to enumerate on those, or do you want, the conflict of interest, put somewhere else?
I didn't know that we needed to enumerate. I was just going to,
Okay, well, then
As I
I make a
went through.
motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I wanted to, we are doing the recipient rights, training today. And, I just wanted to suggest that maybe if we put that to the end of the meeting, those folks who don't need to go through that training would be able to go home, and we will stay for that.
I'd like to amend my motion to move the annual recipient rights training down to the end of the meeting before adjournment.
Great. Do I have a support for that motion to change the agenda?
Sure.
By Glenn? Any other discussion? Anything else we should do? If not, all in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Amended agenda.
Okay,
Second.
Because all we did was approve the amendment. You know, the agenda is.
again, I didn't listen here. All right. I have a motion and a support. Did I hear somewhere? You supported that we, approve the agenda as amended. Any other discussion? All in favor say yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Opposed? Motion carried. Now, consent agenda. Is there anything on this that anyone wants to remove? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Vote to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support? Support. Support by Jane. Any other discussion? Favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion carried. Oh, I'm pleased to say that, the program committee report is going to be coming from Jane today.
So let's see how this goes. So we had two presentations today. The first one was from Prevention Services. So Heidi Denton and Aaron Hurley spoke about their services. There's currently 4 on their team. Some of the services that they provide include the PALS program, which is in 5 different schools. The PALS program focuses on substance abuse and suicide prevention. They also talked about pride groups, which focus on middle school girls. It's an 8-week program. And then the next program they talked about was Pine Street Elementary, which is in Wayland Schools. That focuses on 4th and 5th graders. And that provides them emotional literacy and coping skills. They also talked about mental health first aid that they provide to Perigo staff and also to the public safety individuals, which helps them identify signs and symptoms, reducing the stigma of mental health and how to approach individuals that they feel that are possibly in crisis situations. They also talked about QPR and tobacco cessation programs. Kind of funny, they also, during the presentation about the tobacco cessation, they use very creative strategies to assist people in cessation of smoking. And then they talked about Prime for Life, which is a program that targets children that get caught using substances at school. If they go through, if they attend their classes, then potentially they have reduced suspension, which helps them focus on reducing the substances. The other presentation was administrative professionals, and that was presented by Christine Beals. She said currently it's a team of 4. Hopefully, one just recently moved to a different program, so hopefully they'll be hiring a 5th person in the near future. What they have a multitude of tasks, which consist of assigning consult rooms, taxi rides, mass mailings, copies for individuals for appointments that they may have, answering the phones, ranging from, rescheduling an appointment to maybe potentially handling a crisis call. They have 1 discharge coordinator. They have a transportation coordinator, and then they have one of their members that is assigned to receive and distribute the mail that's received by OnPoint. One of their biggest challenges is providing transportation. One of the program through DHHS, I believe they said, was makes it very difficult for individuals to obtain transportation to their appointments. So they've been handing out a lot of vouchers, which has been a big challenge and barrier for them, because they're going through a lot of the vouchers, so. And I think that was the last thing to talk about. Any questions on any of that?
Don't have any questions for Jane? Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Finance Committee report, Beth.
Okay, I'm just going to hit some highlights on page 4 and 5. Starting off with the human resources, in April, the LRE did an audit. They went over 800 documents. That's a lot of reading, but we were in compliance at 97.1%. So, very nicely done. And along with that, one of the things we do for the LRE audit is have a security test on the IT system. And this year we had 349 vulnerabilities, so weak spots for security. However, last year we had over 1,000. So we improved on a 10-point scale. We went from 5.3 3 to 6.0. And the goal is to get somewhere between 7 and 8. So if we keep making these incremental improvements, we'll be there in a year or two. So that's everything going in the right direction when it came to the audits. Officially, Frontier became the primary server and Charter for internet. Sorry, gotta make sure I throw that in there. And Charter became the secondary. Charter is kind of shaky so-so with speed and connection, whereas Frontier, we seem to be happy with it. However, going over to the other side of the IT world, to the fiber optic connection, we still don't have that connected from the road out front. And we are working on it, but a new thing that came to light is that the state of Michigan not only wants the person that, you know, does the drilling or the boring of the line under the ground, they also have to provide the internet service. So we're kind of re-looking at that now that we had some clarification from the state. Good news, the MAT area of the building, they met with Schley, the architects, and the architects are ready to take that out for bidding after they clean up, tweak the blueprint and so forth. Jumping over to the reports on page, let's say 10. Yeah, page 10. Some summary of the revenue and expenses. Top cap is the Medicaid. Far right column, the total of $385,958. That is expected to go back to the LRE. And then the CCBHC came out with a net, I don't know if it's a net, a plus side of 185,927. However, 170,000 of that was a redirect from our general fund. So 185 minus 170, you're down to about 15,000. We are keeping a close eye on that. Gina has been doing a substantial job of getting more visits in. We were like roughly behind by 900 visits, and now we're down to about 684. So we see the improvements. We just don't know if the improvements of the visits are going to be in time to hit our budget by the end of the year. So, over a 7-month average, per month, we average 2,247, 2,250. We are budgeted for roughly 2,300. So we're still below our monthly average by 50. And we still have to make it to the end of the year on top of our average. So you have your work cut out for you, Gina, but we do see the improvement. Going on to page 11, the big number are on the right column, the right-handed column, second to the last number, 2,476,000 unrestricted. And the finance department is working on investing that and using the interest to offset some costs going forward. So smart use of the money. The final page of the financial reports, basically everything's going along just like last month. Up on the top, the percent of the year is at 58.33%. Total operating revenue is at 56.5. Total operating is at 56.15. So we are maintaining our expenses within our revenue. Down on the change in net position, it was healthier as of April 30th. It was at $240,415. So even though we are struggling a bit to get the productivity up with the CCBHC, overall, we had a solid month in April. The reason for those, for that nice number is the improvements at the CCBHC, some county funding, and then taking the interest off from some of the accounts to keep us healthy. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on that? They're all talked out. We talked in committee. Jumping back to page 6, we have to pay the bills. So I recommend that the OnPoint board approve the May 2025 disbursements totaling $3,598,533.85.
I heard a motion. Does anybody have a support?
Support.
Karen? Discussion? Do a roll call vote. Glenn?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Beth?
Yes.
I say yes. Jane?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Motion passes.
That's it for us.
Isn't there, contracts?
Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Yes.
It was a test and I passed.
I was like, that's the numbers I'm not. All right, sorry about that. We have some contractors that we have to add to the provider list, so I recommend that the OnPoint board approve the following list of provider contracts for fiscal year 2025.
There's a motion. Do I have a support?
Support.
Support by Glenn. Any other discussion? Do another roll call vote? It's money.
Yes.
Yeah. Karen?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
I say yes. Beth?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Crystal?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Motion passed. Now you're done. All right. Now to recipient rights committee. Glenn, do you have any report? for
We
us
do.
today?
We did meet today.
Okay.
We're still continuing to meet on a quarterly basis. So our numbers reflect the quarter. They're on page 16. Shouldn't say our numbers, the rights, maybe are the rights office number. So from March to May, we had a total of 51 allegations, which is down from the previous quarter. And the team, the rights team is doing a fantastic job of keeping us under that 90-day requirement. So we don't get any leftovers from the state. With the pending one, with the law enforcement investigation, there are no penalties pushed towards us because of the law enforcement involvement. So the numbers are looking better. They came down from what they were. And then we also did our semi-annual report was presented to us. We reviewed that. There are a couple of concerns on that as far as what they're finding for the, what's the word I'm looking for? Misbehaviors, allegations. Anyway,
Okay.
internally, the numbers have gone up, which is concerning. Oh, are you?
Yeah, the semi-annual report.
I'm sorry. Oh, thank you. So the semi-annual report's coming around. It is for, it's for information only. The board does not have to do any action, take any action. So, but the concern, like I was saying, is the increase in internal, reporting or allegations, I guess, maybe is the correct word. So as a committee, we did, discuss it, and we may need to look at increasing training of staff to try and help reduce those incidents. That's the word I'm looking for, incidents. So, so that was discussed, and so that was basically the extent of the meeting. Is there any questions?
Question to the Glenn?
Oh, well, yes.
Please.
The highlighted complaint categories on the front page, abuse 1, 2, 3 and neglect 1, 2, 3. They're 5 and 6 respectively, substantiated. Were any of them those class ones? Like
What
abuse?
class were they?
Yeah.
That would be a Kelsey question.
Did we have any abuse 1 or neglect 1 substantiated?
So if you go to page 3, that's remediation tools, and it has the category and the type of, so we had some abuse 2s, and a neglect 2, but no, class 1s. The one that's pending law enforcement is classed as an abuse 1.
All right, just wondered.
Yeah.
The mental health services suited to condition, 10 of them were substantiated.
Yeah.
Any pattern, trend of why we missed the boat on 10 of them?
I think it's likely very related to the problem you're seeing in the finance committee, where it's that daily visit number is down. And so the impact that has on the clients when they call in and say, we're not receiving the services that are in the treatment plan. So I know a lot of what the teams have been working on are making the treatment plan match what's actually realistic to serve. So that serves as our standard of care for that complaint. But I think that the hiring that we're doing, the additional levels of supervision should improve that over time.
So it wasn't that the client wasn't getting what they needed. It was that paperwork was not matching it.
Well, so there are times when, some of the things that we found this year have been like, the client is authorized to receive supports coordination once per month, and they're going, 6, 8, 12 months without seeing their supports coordinator. Those have been remediated. They were significant, but they've been remediated. But there are also times when that authorization, if you go back to the assessment, maybe once every other month makes sense. And so both changing the treatment plan and making sure that people are actually seeing who they're assigned to.
Any other questions for Kelsey, seeing she's sitting right here? No? Glenn, you're good? All right, and we'll do I guess we didn't ask you, Kelsey, if you needed to get out of here early, but we're gonna make you stay, right? Okay. Okay. We got Stephanie here, right?
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Vanderpoy, the Chief Operating Officer for Lakeshore Regional Entity. I come to you with 4 things, but they're big things that I need to discuss tonight as far as my update. So the first thing I wanted to mention to you is tomorrow evening, we were supposed to have at 4 o'clock our Oversight Policy Board. That's the board of LRE that manages the PA2 or liquor tax dollars. Sadly, we're not able to make a quorum, so we're going to have to reschedule that meeting. So I did just want to alert you to that. The next meeting is scheduled for that in September. I don't know that we can go that long without having a meeting, so we're going to attempt to get something set up. The other thing I wanted to mention to this group is June 25th, we have 2 very big things happening at LRE. First thing is our Board of Directors meeting, which will be at the Grand Valley Muskegon campus at 11 a.m. We're going to have Alan Bolter there. He's going to do our work session, and I'm going to circle back to that in just a moment. And then at 1 o'clock, their Board of Directors meeting. At the same time, we also have our audit, which I think we had over 1,800 documents that went into our audit, which is through Health Services Advisory Group, or sometimes you hear us call it HSAG. We will be, the vast majority of us employees at LRE will be meeting with Health Services Advisory Group. That's who MDHHS hires to manage us to make sure that we are meeting all of our goals and objectives. So we'll be having that on the 25th. So I'll be able to report out at the next meeting of this group how it goes. I don't expect anything major as far as findings, but you just never know what could happen. So then with the board meeting, one of the things that I wanted to mention is the reason why I brought up Alan Bolter is because I'm sure by now, and you probably picked this up on your way in, there is this document here from Community Mental Health Association that is about the potential rebid for the PHPs. So Alan's going to be discussing what that looks like and what advocacy can look like for members of our board, as well as anyone who attends via Zoom on our Board of Directors meeting. So I know that that's also in your director's report as well, so I don't want to steal any thunder, but I do want to let you know right now, for us as LRE staff, this is something that is, huge for us as staff trying to determine what does this mean? We're getting very little details out of Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And so at this point, our biggest ask is that people advocate. And if I may be so bold, in this document, if you were to turn it to the last page, there is a QR code that if you hover your phone over, it takes you to the website, which goes right to the Community Mental Health Association's advocacy alert. And it will automatically populate for you once you enter in your name and your address, who your elected officials are, and you could do advocacy if you so choose to. So right now, we'll be talking about that heavily over the next few weeks until we hear more from MDHHS. Word on the street is that they're supposed to be releasing the RFP late summer. Nobody knows exactly what the timeline is. They're being very tight-lipped about it. So wanted to let you know, those are the big items we have right now that we are managing right now at LRE. So that actually concludes my report.
That was 4?
Yeah, those were 4 things. Big ones.
All right. Any questions for Stephanie? Oh, yeah.
My question concerns the development of the Department of Health and Human Services going from what they said in the first place of bidding out this PHIP to a single entity. Now it's 3. Is there any word at your level whether they're going to expand it to more, or is that an unknown at this time?
All we know is there's 3. We have not been told any different. There is a map. I don't know if all of you have seen it or not. I have a few head nods. Okay. So we would be in a central region. So instead of having 7 counties, there would now be 44 counties. So we haven't been told anything different.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Okay. I have a lot to go over. We talked a lot in the executive committee meeting this last Friday. So I want to go through several things. And there's a couple of things that I'm hoping that the board will approve that we discussed, that we would like to present. So first of all, I just wanted to I'm looking at something no one else can see. Okay, so one thing was Diane, our compliance officer, had made some recommendations to update some of the policies and procedures. And we went through a lot of that, and that she was very thorough. So it was really mostly just yes or no, and oh gee, I'm so glad she caught that, kind of thing. So we did approve her recommendations with some other discussion, and so we do have there are a new version that we would like to, that the executive committee is recommending that the full board approve those changes. Everybody get
On the way in, or? Okay.
Be honest there, Lauren, be honest. At least I want these moments.
You help explain what those changes are, if you want Mark to do it.
Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, so this is Board Policy 201, which is the policy that really describes how you manage your major responsibilities. It's really your one major policy. In it, there are some changes that have been suggested that have to do with some let's see, the biggest is the issue of conflict of interest, which is exactly what the kind of thing a compliance officer will focus in, right? So in our policies, I'd say she did, generally speaking, a tweak that the executive committee found worthwhile. At the bottom of the second page, where it talks about board member role and function, it talks about how the responsibility of the board is to submit the complaint, issue, or concern to the board chairperson and or chief executive officer and or any member of the executive committee. And the purpose behind that is to make sure that you have the responsibility to make sure that you've done your job to actually pass along concerns that you may have. At least that's what I'm seeing here. Right. And then going to the top of page 3, this is where the changes continue. It specifies that signing a conflict of interest acknowledgement and disclosure form at the time you're appointed. The second thing, and some of these things you do, it just hasn't been in the document before. Second thing, it talks about making a disclosure anytime you see a conflict of interest according to the plan that you signed, the description of any relationship or issue that you have that prevents you from being able to honorably take a vote or be in a conversation for something, you're expected to disclose it. We talked about having it in form, but if you disclose it and we put it in the minutes, it's documented. That was Diane's primary concern, that we document those. So that really is the key change there. If we're to continue on just a little bit, okay, so let me flip to the next area where the change shows up. There's some small minor wording changes. They had to do mostly with changes in titles. The form that you complete at the beginning is another area where it was changed a little bit, but that's not so material because we don't include the form in that. Under page 4, under 8 monthly reports, there were some changes to titles and frequencies of reports. So you'll see the listing of the chief, let's see, the chief, or the director of quality and innovation rather than quality improvement. And then under the compliance officer, it lists a report is coming quarterly. So those are minor changes. But I'd say the biggest piece in this is simply specifying at the top of page 3 the process for board members to identify, document, and report out on conflicts of interest. That was her major change for this document. So the responsibility, of course, and chairperson would be to have the board, which always approves these policies, to approve this one as well.
So our executive committee is recommending that the full board approve these changes. Looking for a motion, Gail?
I would move at this time that the OnPoint board approve the new amended policy and procedure, board policy and procedure 201.
Support for Jane? Any other discussion or questions? All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Here. Okay, so that was the first one. The other, we had, it was great. We had quite a bit of discussion of the people that attended the conference and reported back on what they had heard from both CMHA and amongst themselves. And kind of the one, of course, everybody was talking about the bid out. So I want to be sure that people have, there's a lot of paperwork, but there's a lot of, like, for example, this is very clear. And it really shows you what we're talking about going from. And there are some important, yes, there's one that I've started called concerns that come from Female Health Association regarding the proposals that really helps you. And that's the one that Stephanie just mentioned because it has the URL part that kind of pulls it all together a little bit better because there's a lot to it. And what kind of the gist that I got from, the discussions is that, they're talking, there's lots of talk. And it's really hard because there's nothing to go on, you know, you're guessing a lot. But, one approach they are thinking about is to have kind of a two-pronged approach. And what is that, first of all, of course, to advocate and to educate as much as possible to people what we're talking about, why we're opposed to it, and please support us in opposing this change that they want to make. And then the other thing, though, is kind of at the same time, get ready so that if it is becomes reality, that we can put in a bid, so we stay in the game, you know, that we still have a voice in what happens as far as these changes. So it's kind of, we're opposing it, but then we're also gonna kind of, they're thinking that, well, we still need to participate too. And, you know, it's going to be a matter of, you know, seeing whether 44 CMHs could all agree on a bid proposal. I mean, that's a big thing, but, it's possible that there's some ideas already going around and people are talking to each other. And I think I left the meeting feeling a little better, about the prospects. And then the other thing too is, the timeline is so tight. And let's say they put the bids out and they accept a bid and it starts October 1st. Well, that's only gonna then be in place for 3 months. And then we're gonna have a new administration who may or may not agree to it. And so I'm almost kind of hoping that they're as inefficient as other government agencies that we know about, and that, you know, nothing may happen, but you can't rely on that either. So that was the gist of what I heard, as far as strategies so far. Is there anything else, Mark, that I'm missing?
I could say a little bit more
During yours, okay, yeah, okay. Then, and kind of in line with that, so we were talking about, well, what should OnPoint do? Well, again, we were thinking of several prong approach, and certainly to educate our, you know, the staff and the community members and everyone that might possibly be impacted. And to certainly advocate as much as we can for any allies to also support this. But then we also thought about possibly a month or two ago, there was a resolution, like a sample resolution that CMHA put out that was encouraging county boards of commission to support. And we gave that to the county and they did pass that. And, but we're thinking that maybe each individual CMH board might want to do something similar. And so, Mark has put together one as a draft proposal that I certainly support us looking at and maybe tweaking. And certainly, I would encourage us to think about passing our own resolution that we could then even publicly, I mean, you know, there's one thing that I was looking at the very last, Mark said that primarily the draft that the County Board of Commission passed is pretty much what we are, but he did put a little different in the very last paragraph called "Be it further resolved." And one of the things that I was thinking about is just I don't know if it's even correct protocol, but you know, we're talking about that we urge the governor and the MDHSS and the legislature, and then, going on and on. And, we also, use the word persons served. And I was just thinking, that was kind of second to the last of the list. And I was just wondering if that might be something that we could, kind of put towards the beginning of the, list. But that's not a significant change, but it was the one thing that I did, just think about. So it might be too soon to say, let's pass this potentially tonight. So maybe what we do is we look at it and, we put it on the agenda for next month to discuss and to see whether we approve it. Or I would entertain a motion to, approve it or not tonight. So I'm looking for any comments one way or the other. Yeah.
I think we'll take a little time, to read through it.
Okay.
And, pass it tonight because time is of the essence.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I think because it's pretty much, so I trust that CMHA has done their homework to know what's pertinent to put in the resolution. The county has already signed something very similar. So I would be in agreement. Is there any other opinions, one way or the other? Are you willing to make a motion then? Yeah.
Oh, you read through it?
See nods. I'll see nods, yeah.
I would move that we adopt the resolution of the OnPoint Board of Directors on the proposed bid out of PIHP services by MDHHS.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Beth. Any further comments? I don't. You want to do a vote or a,
The document calls for a roll call, just so we know the numbers of each.
okay, so we'll do a. Right. Deb,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
I say yes. Beth,
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Crystal,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Glenn,
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Need it done. Policies are done. Okay,
That was 9-0, correct, Pat?
correct.
9-0, thank you.
Mark, has this also been, out there, the US, the House?
We're ready to share that tonight, if you haven't picked up a copy on the way yet.
Yes. So there is a bill going through the US House that is, looking at funding that affects us directly. And, this is from the Kaiser Family Foundation, has put together kind of the main, like summarize what is in those bills, or what is in the bill in the different, sections. And, this also is something that I would encourage us all to look at. And, it passed the House. It's now gone to the US Senate. And as of Friday, the Senate had not publicized anything about what they were proposing, correct? Is that still true?
And they dropped their language last night.
Well, they did. So we now have a Senate
Version.
version. You mean they passed it?
No.
No,
Introduced.
introduced, okay. So we get summary next month, or maybe even,
I can do a little bit during my report if you'd like.
All right. Okay. Okay. Then finally, we have been, the executive committee has asked Mark to, update his goals that he is going to be working towards as part of his contract, with us. And he made a presentation to us and, kept some of the goals that had been, old before, and then others that are new. And, we looked through those, and the executive committee has, approved them and is asking, recommending that the full board approve them as well. And so I hope you saw this one that's called a memo from me that, spelled out what the new goals and responsibilities and benchmarks, we will be asking Mark to,
Anybody need a copy?
I get my steps in. I bet you this will be the last month for a long time. I'm gonna check the table first. Hope you get.
okay. This one, I think, unless there was any, glaring opposition, the executive committee thought, we've looked at it, we've talked to him, and, we're comfortable with these new goals, and we would want him to just, present this to the full board for, information. Certainly, if you had anything that you wanted to change, or we would entertain it, but I would think he was pretty darn thorough. We couldn't think of anything else that we thought, should be included. And that was the goals. And then finally, on a lighter note, when Mark and, Gail was reporting on the conference, they ran into an old friend, Mandy, at, Pageant. And, she has wonderful news that she is now the director. She's the new Mark for, the CMH in, Dickinson, Iron, and Menominee counties, so up in the, northern peninsula. So, we all said hi. I'm sure you all said hi to her, and I, wish her the best. That was good news, and maybe we'll get to see her at a future conference. Okay, was there anything I missed in the executive committee? I think we covered it all. Archie.
Mine's gonna be a little bit bigger scale on how we judge market. Middle ground.
Oh, yes, we had some, what do I wanna call?
The ratings, the
Yeah.
rating system.
Expert opinion about, because I don't know anything about, do you have a 2-point scale? Do you have a 5-point? Do you have a 10-point scale? And Beth gave us some very good pointers on what's, an effective method. And so we adopted her, we went from a 5 to a 6. So when we do our evaluations. And we'll ask her to explain why we went to 5 to 6 at that time, but it made a lot of sense. So. Anything else you missed at all from there? Big one. Okay. Any questions about any of that I just covered? Now to Mark.
Thank you. I'll sit right here if it's okay. The report that I put in the packet, several updates, probably warranted on a few of those things. Under the issue of board membership, just to note that we still have not had any specific expressions of interest for that 12th remaining seat. I guess I would say my experience has always been that word of mouth, especially from current board members, is so effective in helping identify people who have the right idea, the right spirit, but also diversity of thought. And so I guess I would just encourage you to continue to spread the word, especially for members who might be, or prospective members who might be in Southwest Allegan County. The Pullman, the outskirts of South Haven, so forth. That's an area that we've never really had any real representation for quite some time. So I really would encourage you to help us spread the word in that direction, and we will be looking as well. We'd also particularly encourage individuals who have experience in the community mental health system. Always value that lived experience with behavioral health issues or housing needs, whatever the case may be. It's helpful to have that experience on our board. Under the community section, you see the work that we've been doing. This past weekend, we also had the experience of supporting with a good number of staff the Bridge Fest booth. That was very good. The item that lists about human services leadership, a number of the community leaders have been working together to try to keep an eye on what's happening to each other's work and then advocating, from our own lanes for what needs to be done to help support continued services for people in Allegan County. Yesterday, we had the opportunity, fairly quickly assembled, but the opportunity to meet with the Attorney General here in Allegan to talk about early childhood education and services for children in daycare and that kind of thing, in childcare. Very interesting to understand, first of all, when we sometimes fall in the rut of thinking that an executive order from the Office of the President of the United States is equivalent to law. She was very quick to remind us that that's not the case. Violating those is not against the law. There's consequences, but it's not against the law. So it's kind of helpful to at least have that interpretation. Second thing to note is that she and other attorneys general throughout the United States have been fairly successful at lodging lawsuits against the administration when there are consequences to local states or the citizens of the state for executive actions that have been taken that, to diminish services or to, like in our own case, there was a period of time when there was a pause on funding. All the grants that we had were paused. Didn't last very long, but there was action around that. We've also seen a fairly significant impact on our government grant program officers, the people who are assigned to work with us on grants that we have. Those kinds of impacts are all things that we should be continuing to raise and make sure that the Attorney General is aware of those issues, particularly the harm that it does to the people we serve. And so that was good encouragement, I think, to do that. And again, a very nonpartisan sort of conversation, but really about following the law as it stands. Finally, or not finally, but the next section we talks about the LRE. I wanted to just to give our kudos to the regional entity, to LRE, for its work in maintaining good attitude and continued services at a time when, obviously they are under duress in the state with the idea of the bid out. This bid out is not the result of a conversation. This bid out is an announcement that we read right alongside any other citizen who receives the press release, indicating what the department thinks is a good idea. And it's, as you will read, as you've read in the materials that we've already pointed to from the association, the numerous reasons for why it's considered to be not a great idea, there hasn't really ever been an opportunity to sit down and debate those with the state. This is just coming out, and it seems as if, if you're a member who's a member of the staff of the LRE, you might be sort of wondering, well, where is this going to go? And what's going to happen to me? And eventually you kind of start to question whether or not your work is worth continuing. All those things start to enter in. And I'm just grateful that Stephanie and Mary and the staff have been forward thinking about that and trying to help both be reassuring to people about what we know and not assuming things that are not in play, but also reassuring folks that we will guard and protect their involvements over time so that there's no reason to consider jumping ship for some other opportunity just because the fear is that the job will end. So toward that end, I just want to share a couple of things. the fact that you've adopted a resolution tonight, which gives us a strong foundation for acting locally, not just in support of us, the county or across the state, is a thing that's going to be important. We're going to be following this up with education for the people we serve and for the community at large to help them understand what's being proposed and to evaluate that. We will look to put together forums that do that. We'll also be increasing our advocacy to share the message of what you've adopted here with our not only our representatives legislatively, but also with the administration to help understand that we are in support of a local, accountable, county-based system, just as specified in the Constitution and in the Mental Health Code, matched to our local needs. That we will be focusing on how to best meet the needs of the people we serve, and that we will be insisting that the system be adequately funded and supported, including the area of CCBHC work. The state is always at its, it has the ability to explore, and we're interested too, in exploring alternatives and models and options, things that make the system better. We can always do that. We want to make sure that we conform the values of a public system, but we want to also work on trying to be constructive members of what the future holds. So toward that, as Chairperson Alice already mentioned, we want to use the opportunity to compete constructively. So we will be working to sort of, as the details of the RFP come out, we will be working to try to figure out how we can best participate in this as a way of supporting the public system. So we believe at this point there will be a favor looked on public entities that apply on this. Now, one interesting thing to note about this map, you might look at this and say, well, they're looking for 3 PHPs. Honestly, they're looking for at least one in each region. There has been some suggestion that they may look for more than one entity to work alongside another entity in the community, offering what they say would be a choice of health plans for the individuals who are served. Now, as you talk with people who are served, much like those of us who have medical care, probably care a little bit more about our healthcare provider, not necessarily the insurance company behind it. Well, the PHP is an insurance company for Medicaid. And so we sort of believe that efficiency, if that's the goal, is usually not met by having more than one of something doing the same thing in the same region. Now, choice is important. We try to give that choice through all of the services and options, and there are many providers that offer these choices, these services in our communities. So that's where we think the emphasis should be put. We are going to be working, already are beginning to hear conversations that we can be a part of some sort of large-scale public entity and a private provider that can work together to represent something that would be referred to as a public-private partnership. That's something that's talked about. There's also discussion about PHPs banding together to create some sort of a super PHP that might be able to compete successfully in this area. Who knows what else may come, but we want to be ready to do that. We may have to come back to our county commission or to our board here to help you enable some of the things that might be required in any of those configurations for the future. We don't know, as Stephanie said, we don't know when the RFP will drop, but once the RFP drops, if they continue with this plan, then there will be a timeline for responding. And all of the work that's needed to get organized to submit a successful response is going to have to be done on that timeline. So don't be surprised if you get a call asking if you can attend a special meeting that's not on the normal sequence. That could happen. Finally, if you didn't, I won't put it on your hands right now because I'm sick of walking over there, but as you came in tonight, one of the documents that was available to you is a listing of all of the responsibilities that are shared between us and the PHP. What I did is I took the last 10 pages out of the contract that we have with the LRE that says, here's the responsibility of the LRE, here's the responsibility of the member, which is us, and here's the responsibilities that we share. And if you're interested in understanding what are the things that are different in the future if we stop doing the PHP CMH partnership the way we do it now, that document gives you that story. Now, I'm not gonna read it to you, not gonna, all I'm gonna say is if you have a little bit of interest, get a feel for what it would be, how it would be different. Because things like access to services are a managed care function that belong with the LRE, but they're delegated to us to take care of for the LRE in our own region, which means that we can take care of that for our community directly, rather than having people in Allegan go through the system in Muskegon to get it done. That's the kind of stuff we work on together to try to make the best situation for the people in our community out of the managed care operations that the state has us doing. So with that, I'm gonna turn to just a few more comments about the legislation at the federal level about the Medicaid program. I won't repeat what I put in the Britain report, but I did say that the Senate bill did drop, or at least the initial language dropped last night. And all I've seen so far today have been just a few news reports about it. The main takeaway from the Senate language, which was, I think if you watched the news, people expected or hoped that it might be a little less severe than what was in the House. It's actually more severe than what was in the House. So the biggest things are the Medicaid taxes, the taxes that are assigned by Michigan to providers that generate revenue, which is then used to match additional federal Medicaid monies. That amount was limited to 6% in the House budget. It's limited to 3.5% in the Senate budget or Senate bill. So that reduces the amount of money that Michigan draw from the Medicaid system. 49 of the 50 states use that technique, so it's not something unique to Michigan or anything like that. But it's a way of cutting Medicaid revenues by dropping the amount that states can draw in addition from the federal budget. Secondly, work requirements continue, but the Senate upped it. Said parents were exempted from work requirements in the House bill. In the Senate bill, if you have teenagers, you're now under the requirement of being in the workforce or having qualifying volunteer experience. So they used to exempt parents, but the parents of teens are now in play. Finally, the estimates are not here as to what this would impact yet in terms of total Medicaid coverage lost, but the House bill had an estimate of 7.8 million people would lose Medicaid as a result of this. And some of it not by just being disqualified, it's part of the efforts to demonstrate that you are meeting the requirements. So like work requirements, you have to report this stuff. And if the system we report it to doesn't work perfectly, you can get excluded. So those are the kinds of things where we're concerned about, where people will meet the requirements of Medicaid, but we lose the ability to qualify for it because the systems that you use to report your qualifying activities don't work right. Michigan went through that with the Unemployment Commission years ago with during COVID era, so it's possible. These things have to be bulletproof across all 50 states. So we don't know how many more people than the 7.8 million would be projected by the Congressional Budget Office to lose Medicaid, but it's expected that it would be higher. Finally, when we think about the concern, what does it mean for people to lose Medicaid? The two major issues that I think about here for OnPoint is that the size of the enrollment affects the revenue we have to work with in the first place. Fewer enrollees means less revenue. Now, our general population of people we serve doesn't change that much. So we are going to talk about less money for the same amount of people we're serving with severe and disabling conditions. In the general economy, less funding for people who have health conditions, people without coverage, does not mean that these people do not get health care. What it means is the people who provide health care for them don't get paid for it. All right. So if I've got an emergency condition or something that could have been handled in a primary care office, if I don't have the ability to get that need met and it gets to be an emergency, I'm going to the hospital. The hospital does not turn away people who have emergencies. It's unreimbursed care. We already know that Allegan's hospitals have been purchased by Beacon Health Systems out of Indiana. Beacon has already let us know through informal conversations with other colleagues in the community that they will not keep the hospital here open if this kind of adverse financial reimbursement situation exists. So they'll own the hospital. It just will be mothballed. So these are the kinds of things that are really on the bubble. And I think for us to encourage, not only related to the resolution, but to be mindful of the backdrop that this comes upon. We certainly are not talking about this from a partisanship standpoint, it's a policy standpoint. So our action is to certainly inform and urge those with the responsibility of making decisions administratively as well as legislatively, the best information that they can about what the impact would be on their community, and encouraging people to have their voice, which is how it's all done. So that's it for my report. And if you have any questions, I'm certainly willing to respond.
Questions for Mark? Told you I was happier now. I'm.
Sorry, burst the bubble.
Oh, okay. All right. Now I have another opportunity for any public comment. If I wishes to speak. Hearing none, I will go on to, let's go with, Kelsey's board member comments. Anything? You're not gonna resign from Kara. Okay, give me your. After one. After one meeting.
No, I think I'll say that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just enjoying learning all about this, how it all affects all of our lives every day. It's eye-opening. I'm glad to be part of it.
Oh, good. Good comment. Aaron? Yeah.
My compliments to Kelsey for very correct.
Yes.
Appreciate that. There's a lot of reading that we should be doing and refreshing ourselves every so often. And to realize that we are also eyes and ears to all of our people that we serve.
I would just encourage all board members to follow the CMHA report that comes out every week. And follow down on there, and it says board works, always check on that. If there's a course that you have not taken, please take them or look at them again. And I always encourage people to go to the conferences, which you'll learn something every time you're there.
Yeah.
And it's always good to at least see a viewpoint that you don't see at a board meeting, how sequential intercept model works or something from the people that are actively doing it and presenting at those conferences. So that's all.
At the conference, there was a board works certificates that were given out. Did anyone receive any to bring back?
No, one person was given a certificate live in the meeting, and that was it. And I don't know, Megan, if you have any more information about how those are being done today. I'm told that we can do our own, but are they awarded in general, or are we supposed to award them locally?
I'm not sure about that. I would assume that they're awarded by the CMHA if you complete all of the classes, which they have yet to post one class online, so that's holding back
Yeah.
a bunch of people.
Okay, otherwise, we're responsible for tracking them now.
Yes,
So that's what's new. So. Should we, do you guys see a report every so often of how many you've taken and where you stand on it?
It's several months since I've seen one.
yeah, nothing's changed with it.
All right, meeting on the one that's absent.
Oh, there's a meeting there tomorrow. Maybe I can find out from Monique what the story is.
All right.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, I'm tired, so.
Second.
That's all we have to do.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.